Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always in this dungeon of doom is Tim.
Howdy ho.
This is a horror movie podcast. Every week we get together and we talk about a movie that we've watched, and on this episode we are going to be looking at The Beach House, which is a Shudder exclusive, which just hit a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to dive in and talk about it. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do, and we'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. And just before we start, I will just take this time to remind everyone on YouTube to please hit the like button if you enjoy the show. It's the nice, easiest and cheapest way to support everything we do and helps more people find us, so please hit the button. So I'm being an annoying YouTuber and asking you to do that. But we shall start then with The Beach House, which is a film about a young couple who go to spend a weekend at said beach house and encounter an older couple who are also kind of double booked for the same house. The young guy's dad kind of like also gave this pair of friends permission to use it, and basically about halfway through the film, there's kind of a sort of twist or turn that sends it down a path where some kind of creature or entity is changing things. And I feel like, how did I talk about this without spoilers? Because like the first half of the movie is just a sort of slow build of like a bit of tension. There's not really much to it, and then all of a sudden here all this like idea starts kind of coming at you.
Yeah, I would basically say it's a slow burn movie that maybe about halfway through or so turns into a body horror movie. And
yeah, okay. Yeah,
kind of it. You can leave it at that.
Would you say slightly Lovecraftian?
Sure, definitely.
Slightly, yeah. Not full on Lovecraftian, but slightly. Yeah. All right, so that's the general gist of it. I suppose I'll ask Tim the question. Tim, did you enjoy The Beach House?
I did actually. It's it's funny because it is I would say like very slow in the beginning. So I definitely could understand if maybe people complain about that, but once the horror starts, a lot of it really worked for me. I think there's one very notable scene that I think most people, that's what let's just say the foot scene I think is what a lot of people are gonna come out of this movie talking about. And I think it does handle the body horror really well. It's not perfect. I think there's definitely complaints about it, but I mean, I think if you like kind of like gross body horror, maybe like some semi aquatic horror, Lovecraftian kind of stuff, again, not like an amazing movie, but I think there's enough there to like
can you finish that sentence? No.
There's enough there to like that's the end of the sentence.
Oh, right. Because when you said like, it sounded you were saying like, and then you were going to say something else. But fair enough. Okay.
Like period.
Like period. Okay. So, all right. I what do I think of the movie? I suppose is the natural thing to go on to next. Yeah, I thought it was all right. I think it's actually got some nice directing touches. I thought some of the visuals were kind of nice, especially once there's a lot of sort of like red and orange lights kind of like flickering and like the smoke and stuff like that in the mist. So there's some nice visuals kind of as the movie goes on. I thought it had enough early on as well to not just look like some sort of straight to VOD movie. It looked like more like a movie, and I suppose that's something that I really appreciate, because there's so many VOD movies that I just kind of think look the same bland style, and I get really kind of dull or sick of looking at them. The movie,
I think there's like there's like this I'm not sure how to describe it, but like with the kind of bad like straight to VOD kind of movies, there's just like I think like you said, like a blandness to them that maybe not necessarily like horribly shot or anything, but there's just kind of this like boring sameness looking quality to them. But I did think this was a pretty movie.
Yeah, no, it's not like a super stand out. It's not like something where you're immediately saying, oh, you have to check out the cinematography in this movie. But it's got some nice touches. It looks like a movie, and has some money moments kind of later on. The film is directed and written by Jeffrey A. Brown. So it's just someone pulling double duty. It stars, the two leads are Liana Liberato, who plays Emily, and Noah Gros, who plays Randall. the young couple, who it kind of sets up at the start. They're in this is kind of like not a makeup vacation, but they're in kind of a tough spot because he's decided to drop out of university and she's still there, so their relationship's a little bit strained because of his life choices. And this is kind of them bonding and potentially discussing what to do with their lives now. She is determined to go on to post-grad and sort of continue her studies. She's been doing chemistry and she wants to do, was it astral chemistry, I think was the, what she called it?
That sounds about right, yeah.
And someone questions, what is, you mean like chemistry on other planets? And she sort of explains that, well, it can be, but it's also about chemistry that, we haven't really discovered yet on Earth, in the deep, parts of the ocean, stuff where, it's kind of all theoretical and there's still stuff down there we've not discovered and yada, yada, yada. Which obviously is kind of pertinent to the movie and the stuff that it introduces as we go on. So, I think I think that stuff and the way it's seeped in is okay. It's a little bit kind of obviously expositionary at times, saying, hey, here's the themes we're playing with, here's what we're doing. So, I think that's a worthwhile critique. The first half of the movie is kind of an odd tension thing where very quickly after they've been there, Emily gets up and like catches this sort of, upper middle-aged woman sort of walking into the house, and it's like, oh, wait, there's people here, like why is there people here? And it's kind of shot relatively well with the tension, there's kind of like a bit of suspense as she's kind of trying to like hide from her before she gets Randall to come with her and kind of like say hello and confront whoever's there, not in a bad way, just in like, we have to find out what's going on. And the first half of the movie is kind of odd, and it's kind of the tension of like just like them coexisting, and they kind of agree to both just stay at the house, and like, oh, there's more than one bedroom, we can all stay here at the same time, and they don't really know each other. Like, there's enough for because obviously if they were complete strangers, it would be weird for them to agree to stay at the house at the same time. There's just enough of a connection where the guy knows his dad, Randall's dad, like that's why they're here, is that they know his parents. So there's just enough of a connection where they're like, oh, hey, I saw you when you were a kid, like you've grown so much. There's just enough there that it's not completely weird that they agree to say, oh, well, yeah, we'll just all stay at the house at the same time.
Yeah, I think the thing that's kind of weird, and like I don't know if this is on purpose, but since there is like kind of a little bit of weirdness and tension between them, I kept waiting for there to be some type of reveal. Like I kept thinking there was going to be a scene where like he calls his dad and his dad's like, I don't know who you're talking about, I never met that person, you know what I mean? Like like that never really anything ever really comes out of that. But it's I don't know, I do think it's like a little strange that it feels, I mean, maybe it's just how I view the movie, but it does feel like there is some type of weirdness going on, or that I kept expecting there to be more to this older couple.
They established that the wife is taking pills for whatever she has. I mean, it's never really clearly defined, and I figured that's what the weirdness was coming from. I'll be honest though, there was a portion because they agree to have dinner together and they're sort of laughing and drinking and whatever. I'll be honest, there was a portion in this movie where I really thought that eventually they were going to be like, hey, do you want to do a bit of swinging? Like, I was expecting some sort of weird, like, old and young couple swap thing happening at some point. Because there was a couple of scenes where it was just, because the actor who plays Mitch, the older guy, Jake Weber, he's like the one face in this I recognize from other things. There were scenes with him and Emily on their own, and at the same time it was Randall and Jane, who was like the older woman. Yeah. And I kind of felt like there's a lot of scenes with them being paired off separately, and I was like, is there going to be some sort of weird like some sort of sex party that develops here? Not necessarily because that's what the characters would do, but because whatever's affecting them. Because like you say, there's this kind of weird feeling to it right from like early on that I wondered wherever the movie's going. Obviously it becomes a body horror film, but I was wondering, like, is there a psychological element as well that's affecting them? And I was almost expecting, like, how in like Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, there's like a weird sex orgy that happens because they're all affected with what's going on.
Of course.
I was wondering, is there going to be some sort of weird sex orgy here because they're all being affected by whatever otherworldly influence is happening for the first half. It's kind of funny that we did this just a few months after Color Out of Space, because I feel like there is maybe a little parallel to this. Is definitely not as weird or as out there, but there's some parallels to be had. Yeah, I do think it does get like a little trippy at times, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it never is like it never becomes like super crazy or anything. Yeah. Well, and your mileage may vary. I mean, we've seen a lot of shit, so
That's true.
our threshold for what's super crazy is definitely a lot higher than your average person. Then again, is that average person watching Streams After Midnight on YouTube or listening to the podcast feed?
Dear God, I hope not.
And then going to the podcast feed and rating us 5 stars with a nice review saying these two are great. They're wonderful, good spirits who guide me on my horror journey.
Oh, well, that'd be nice.
Yeah, just saying. You can do that if you want. I'm not trying to strong arm anyone by any means.
But I think definitely like some of like the standouts in the movie is like it. Well, actually, before I get to like the standouts, I think if I were, since we're kind of talking about the characters, if I was gonna have maybe a complaint, I do think the characters are kind of boring. Like they're not bad. They're like, it's not like they're unlikable by any stretch of the imagination, but there isn't really like much like to them. But I mean, I guess maybe that's kind of the point of the movie, or maybe it helps with it because once all the crazy stuff starts, it's not like maybe it's kind of supposed to be like, oh hey, like this is just happening to average people or something. I don't know.
Nah, I think it's a fair complaint. I think it's a complaint that maybe where the script is lacking is actually like super engaging characters that we really, really care about. Because I like, they didn't annoy me. I agree that they're not annoying characters or actively bad, but they're also kind of blank. This is the one thing where it kind of has that VOD quality where the one bland thing about it is that the characters are just really bland and they're just kind of there. Like, and all the stuff where they try to give Emily of like, oh, she's really into her, she wants to like, get her deep sea diving like license, and because she wants to go and explore and like discover things, and is really into the biochemistry of like unknown life and all that. Like, all of that felt a little bit forced and clunky to me. I could almost feel the script trying to say, hey, this is what she's like, this is what she's about. And I know that's like a really, it's almost a really annoying complaint because you can boil down any bit of like character exposition in any movie to that if you really want to be a dick about it. But I felt it, I didn't blend seamlessly into the storytelling. I could feel it sticking out as it was happening. And
like the same thing with the the boyfriend character, because like his thing is like he kind of talks about like having dropped out of college and stuff, and the older guy's like, oh, like, well, your father, the doctor, like he's like he must not like that and whatever. And it's like and they kind of like set up this like stuff, but it's just it's not really like super relevant to the story. Like it's not like these characters have big arcs or anything that justifies it.
That's the other big failure of the film, is that I'm talking about the characters being kind of dull, is that it's using the two main characters to try and set up a thematic question, which the movie's kind of answering or challenging with its supernatural element. And I feel like because the ending is definitely meant to be this poignant moment. It's meant to be this poignant moment where, if you've been kind of getting the themes that it's been laying down throughout the film, where like everything she talks about, everything Emily talks about, because she talks about the creation of life on Earth and how why there's like not life on other planets, and how it's just like if the chemistry or biology was just one step to the left, it might have never happened, and we might all just be gas, or we might all just be something, and life became dominant on this planet and blah blah. And there's a lot of that talk, and a lot of his talk about what he wants to do for his future and what she wants to do with her future it's all this like this idea of what kind of like comes out on top, and what's the dominant life form, and all that stuff. And I feel like it's trying to make this kind of poignant little kind of like question and about how like we have to give in to like the path of nature, or the path of like what we're supposed to do, or the path of life taking hold. And I feel like it all feels a little bit
giving into like evolution. Like,
it feels a little bit shallow in the sense where it feels like it wants to feel a little bit profound. Instead, though, it just kind of feels like the structure of a B movie. And like, I appreciate the attempt. I'm not saying don't try to do this. I'm not saying don't try to give your movie more weight, because that's kind of what makes great movies great, is that they typically have more weight. But this feels like it's just missing the mark. It feels like it's trying. Bless their souls. They're trying, but it doesn't quite get there.
But then, I mean, and like, not to be too negative, but like with that stuff aside, once the horror starts, I think the horror is handled really well. And I think, I mean, I guess even before that, it's kind of a testament that like the like direction and cinematography does a good job of setting up this atmosphere. Like it's kind of like a quiet, somber contemplative movie, and then like then the horror starts, and it's still kind of maintaining this like kind of weird, trippy, creepy atmosphere.
And I think it does a good job of always feeling like Emily's discomfort in certain scenes where there's a scene and it's not even anything intimidating necessarily. She just sort of, she's on the beach sunbathing, and like the older guy sort of is like, he's just kind of there behind her, and she kind of like, just and the way she sort of like just sort of gently puts on her top because she's feeling a little uncomfortable is well handled. I think the direction handles those moments well. I think I would definitely say that Brown is a better director than he is a writer based on this movie, because I think all the problems that I think we have with what's happening are all in the script. The actual handling of the moments, the actual tension of all the various moments that the movie presents us with are handled fairly well. It's just it doesn't necessarily amount to more than the moments themselves, which is basically the main like symptom of a script that's just kind of underwhelming. That's basically what it is.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But and that does sound super negative, but there's definitely enough here to get something out of it. It's as far as like a movie that's on a streaming service, is it worth watching? Yeah, for a streaming service, it's totally worth watching. Yeah. I would definitely say that. I'd say no kind of the caliber you're getting in for, and maybe some people will like it a bit more than us or a bit less than us, but.
Yeah, like I was excited to watch it because I had seen, some people on like Twitter and stuff kind of raving about it, and it's probably not something that I would rave about, but it is definitely something that I liked and would recommend. Like, like after I watch it, I wouldn't go online and be like, oh my God, it's amazing, you have to check it out right now. But I would probably, go on there and be like, oh hey, it's like pretty solid like movie, like, check it out if you get the chance.
Yeah. So that's basically the spoiler-free version of this conversation, so I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Alison M. Fordyce, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Boardnow, and Zammer Jammer for being Patreon producers. That means they're all patrons at $20 or above, but you can of course support us for much less than that. You can support us for as little as $1 per month, and for that $1 you'll get a bonus episode of Streams After Midnight every single month. There's about 20 of them so far, so you get a whole back catalogue to dive into if you sign up. $5 and up, you get access to the episodes a day early, and you get the right to vote on an episode once per month as well. So go and have a look and see if you want to get some bonuses and feel warm and fuzzy about help keeping all the content coming. So go and have a look and see if you're into it. Yes.
And if you sign up for our ultimate tier, I will just walk into the ocean.
Okay. I'll add that to your first thing in the morning tab.
$350. I'll just walk into the ocean and disappear.
What, forever?
Yeah.
What, so I take $350 off someone and you just go and disappear forever?
Yeah.
I feel like the price should be higher if you're just going to vanish for the rest of time.
Okay. $375.
I thought it was something you could do like once a month. Like I'll walk out of the ocean.
No, I will literally just walk into the ocean forever.
Okay, and just disappear. All right. Which of course is something that happens in this movie. Although he doesn't get paid $350 first. Notable. So full spoilers for the beach house then. So yeah, like I say, so the first part of the movie is kind of them with this couple, and they're getting along well enough, and they're introducing themselves, and
like I did kind of like the dinner scene a little bit. Like I liked the like once they are kind of getting along, and once they are like a little bit, like talking about like drugs and stuff, because like I do think it was kind of an interesting scene, seeing how like you kind of have to like tiptoe around the older generation, but then like with them being like kind of cool with it and stuff. Like I don't know, that stuff kind of worked for me.
Yeah, well, it was once they both started giving their opposing viewpoints on life, where she's talking about how she wants to go to post grad school and do all this stuff, and he's like, nah, I dropped out of uni. I don't, what is this the point of this education? Just so I can get a regular job and pay taxes and blah blah blah. And it's setting up the core thematic conflict of the movie, which is that she's determined to control her life and know what the steps are, and he's determined to go with the flow. And it kind of like they're both kind of right and wrong, bizarrely. Like it's kind of ultimately the thing. But she also brings up in other scenes when she's asked about life and how life formed, and all these things that evolution kind of takes hold and kind of overrides what was ever there, and gases become liquids and liquids become solids, and certain types of life, you know, are dormant and then, you know, become something and blah blah blah. Which is kind of ultimately what the story of the movie is that this life form from the ocean infects the people and ultimately takes control. It's basically this life form from the ocean is starting to take control of the earth, and like not because it's malicious, but just because it's dominant and it's going to win. It's going to win because evolution deems it as the successor, I guess. I mean, like that's kind of what the point of the story is in a lot of ways.
Hell yeah.
But the actual story is that
it's like how I won and became the host of the show.
You keep telling yourself that, Tony. So after the dinner party and they're all kind of feeling weird and hungover, the old guy Mitch disappears for a bit, and they're concerned because it's left Jane on her own and she's kind of like out of it. But they go down to the beach anyway just to kind of sunbathe and relax. And this is kind of where the movie properly turns up a few gears. Sorry,
is this after that scene where like the wife? I think it's like the wife goes out at night first, and there's all this kind of like fluorescent.
Yeah, because
algae and stuff.
Even before that moment, there's a moment where they're all in the balcony, and like it looks kind of pretty. You can see some of this colorful glow on the horizon and on the stuff around the beach. But then, yeah, later on in the night, she goes out on her own, and she's like, it's almost like she's walking through Avatar, right? Where it's all the bright lights of the forest and all that, yeah. Which I guess the whole point of this is that nature is both beautiful and scary and unrelenting, you know. But it can be beautiful. I guess is what it's doing.
And this, I think, like kind of like you said, like it feels like like a little similar to maybe like The Color Out of Space or something, where you have these like really beautiful, vibrant colors, but it is also kind of like this weird, scary otherworldliness to them.
Oh yeah, sure. But basically, Randall feels a bit. Actually, I had a weird line here that kind of I thought was odd because his stomach kind of rumbles and he's like, "Oh, I don't feel so good. I'm going to go back to the house." And she's like, "Hey, why? Where are you going?" And he says, "Oh, I just have to go to the bathroom. It's guy stuff." And I went, "What do you mean guy stuff? What guy stuff is unique to men? Like what women have women stuff because it's like." They actually have this whole extra thing that they have to do every month. There's no such thing as guy stuff when it comes to going to the bathroom.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're with a partner, like even if you've been together for a while, like you still don't really want to be like, "Hey, babe, I gotta go take a massive shit."
Well, you don't say that. You just say, "I gotta go to the bathroom." But he says, "No, it's guy stuff." What, taking a shit's unique to having a penis? What? It was a weird line, right?
But also important to note that the night before he had an oyster, which I think had something to do with since it was like coming from the ocean or whatever.
Yes.
It's doing damage to him.
Yeah, when she's describing how life evolves and that, there's a lot of close-ups of the oyster and like the
there's like a little thing that kind of like pops up and then like pops back in.
Yeah. But this is when Mitch shows up and walks into the ocean. Just kind of says, "I'm going to go for a swim," and he just walks into the ocean and disappears. And Emily's walking towards the water to sort of see if he's okay, and then realizes she steps in something gooey, and it's like it's like jellyfish-esque, but with like other like octopus kind of type elements and.
I really like the scene where he's walking into the ocean because like like really like wide shot of just the I mean like the beach and ocean itself like looks beautiful, and I just love that it it really takes its time with him just like watching it or just walking in, her watching him, and like you do kind of get something is wrong, and then like you kind of after he starts to get like to a certain point you do kind of start to be like, okay, is he just gonna keep going? And then I like that you do literally see him like keep going until he's just kind of like a little speck and then no more. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. I think the pacing and direction is great. The pacing and the direction is the best thing the movie has, I think, ultimately. But she basically stepped in this thing and it's all icky and gooey, and you don't necessarily get the sense right away that it's done something to her. It's not until she sort of like hobbles back up to the house and we see that there's like a part of it sticking out of her foot and she has to try and get it out of the said foot. And
then I like even like having to get up to the house is like a challenge because like it's it's all on. I forget if it's like a ramp or just actual stairs, but like
yeah, it's like the wooden stairs because even the poster on Shudder is like her head just popping up from when she's crawling up the stairs trying to get back up to the house.
So yeah, like imagining having to like go up especially if it's like you have like open wounds and stuff, like you don't want to be walking on like sand and dirt and stuff, and I don't know, just the act of having to crawl up to the house is I thought was good.
It's almost like an icky snake that's like sort of going inside her from this wound, and she has to like pull it out, and she puts disinfectant on it first, which looks very painful, and then she pulls it out, and the whole thing is pretty disgusting. And makes you curl up your toes a little bit when you're watching. Is all I'm saying. You kind of just go, oh.
So I mean, I don't know if we ever really talked about it that much, but like in terms of like I guess as like a subgenre, like how do you feel about body horror? Is that something you like, something that you get excited about or want to come to, or are you kind of indifferent about it?
It's a good question. I'm not put off by it. I mean, I'll say that.
I also feel like body horror has like a big like sci-fi like intersect to it.
Yeah. I guess I like it well enough. I mean, indifferent feels like too, I don't know, uncaring. Because I would say I care. I like it when it's done well. There's definitely certain things you can do with the body that will make me kind of want to look away because it's just disgusting enough that I don't want to see it. But
I think everything about this scene was just so like I guess. Maybe I don't think about it too much, but I guess I would consider myself like a body horror fan. But yeah, there's definitely stuff that like makes me wince, and I think everything about this scene really hits that sweet spot that you kind of want from body horror, where it is very painful and you kind of want to turn away, but you also like weirdly fascinated by it that you like you kind of have to look at it, and it's like from the start where she has this big wound on her foot, like this little snake thing's popping up, and then she has to disinfect it, and then she has to pull it out with these like tongs and a butcher knife, and it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's funny you said that body horror is probably even more of a sci-fi thing than a horror thing in a lot of ways. Because this almost was an Ace episode instead of a Streams episode. Because one of the descriptions I read sort of said otherworldly life form, and I went, oh, it's a sci-fi movie. And having watched it, there is like a little bit of a sci-fi tinge to it, but it's definitely played more to the horror, I think, than anything else.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't really argue either way. I would probably think of it more as a horror movie, but if someone was like, oh yeah, sci-fi movie, I wouldn't be like, no, you're wrong, but I can definitely see that.
Honestly, there's a lot of movies that kind of dance between them, and you just kind of have to make a judgment call based on, especially in my case, I have to make judgment calls because I have a show for horror and a show for sci-fi, and I have to decide where they go. So,
usually my rule of thumb is if it's boring, it's sci-fi. If it's good, it's horror.
That is absolute nonsense.
I think.
How many bad movies have we reviewed on this show, Tim?
I don't know, like 3, 4.
Bye, man.
Yeah, it was a sci-fi movie.
It was not a sci-fi. Shut up. We have to review like far more bad, boring horror movies than we do good ones. That's just a fact.
Maybe.
Just a fact.
I think your only criteria is like, do I feel like talking to Tim today, or do I feel like talking to Tara? That's all you care about.
Okay, sure. Am I just in a Tim mood on a Sunday? Is that what you're saying to me?
Yeah.
It's Sunday. It's time for Tim.
Why'd we do Leprechaun 4 on this channel?
Oh, so you're saying we shouldn't have done that? I should have given that to Tara. I said, Tara, you get Leprechaun 4.
Don't get me wrong, it's a great movie. I'm glad we did it. It's just that it's more of a sci-fi movie.
So you're saying we should have done Leprechaun 1, 2, 3. Tara should have done 4, and then we need to come back for In the Hood.
Exactly.
Okay, just checking. So where were we? Okay, yeah. So she's just taken it out of her foot, and she's bandaged up her foot.
And it almost becomes like kind of a zombie movie from here.
I was kind of thinking about that as well, is that it's kind of like a low-key zombie movie in the sense that the people are getting overtaken, Because the wife Jane, she's like starting to, because basically when Randall goes up to the house before this, he like hears noises coming from her room and he enters and we don't see what happens. It's kind of just mysterious, and when Emily finds him, he's kind of just confused. It's like he passed out. He's not really sure what's happening. I think there's an implication that Jane passed something on to him. In some way. Maybe there was some swinging action in a sense, just not the normal erotic kind that we come to expect in our horror and I guess porn. But
I do like it. It is kind of like, I don't know, maybe you could kind of say also a little bit of a Lovecraftian aspect where like there's a lot of stuff that's like kind of left to your mind, like it's not a very showy movie because it does sound like there's a lot going on between him and Jane and stuff, but you never actually really see like what's happening on that other side of that door.
Because basically they just try and leave the house immediately, and they don't have their car keys. He left them in his shoe on the beach, which he's forgotten where he left them. So he's kind of hobbling. He's kind of out of it. He's kind of sick right after this post Jane encounter. I mean, he was already kind of sick before then. Hence the guy things he had to go do in the bathroom. Right. Because shitting's a guy thing. I thought stupid dialogue. But so he's kind of on her shoulder and they're hobbling along, and they get to this other house, and this is where this is what made me think of zombies, is because we get like this other random guy, because they mentioned at the start of the movie that it's odd that the entire like beach neighborhood is all quiet, like they're the only ones here. And then I guess at this point we kind of realize that it's because this thing's already infected other people, because this guy who clearly either lives at this house or nearby comes crawling around the corner of the house, and his eyes are all white, and this is kind of what the zombified people look like once they've been taken over by this thing.
I was like, whoa, I mean, once they left the beach house, where'd they go? Raccoon City?
That was
terrible. Are they in
terrible.
Raccoon City now?
That was terrible. I get the reference, Tim. I don't know if you noticed this, but I happen to enjoy Resident Evil from time to time.
Hey, we all love those movies. So,
Shut your goddamn goat mouth right now. How dare you? How dare you? I've been so offended in all my life. You're a goddamn cretin. Alright. And that obviously they get scared and they run, and they end up breaking into another house. Although I think before that, I think the bit where they find a car and they try and talk in the car radio is before that.
And just another like really simple but cool like visual of just like the flashing of the, and it didn't look like a cop car to me. Look, maybe like more like a tow truck or something. I'm not sure, but like,
I was thinking like a roadside kind of AAA or something like that, where it has like an orange like light that's like, strobing. Yeah,
and it looks like really cool, just like kind of illuminating, like because I think at this point it's kind of like starting to get like very foggy, and then you just kind of have this light flashing and like illuminating it.
They're straight up mist, in fact, when they're kind of like going around, because at one point they actually end up in the old couple's car. I say old, they're not that old, but you know what I mean, like the older couple. And they're driving around, and there's moments where you just see like a little bit of light in the mist, and then the car eventually. It was almost like the movie The Mist, the way the car was kind of coming out of the mist itself. They were clearly just pumping lots and lots of smoke and fog into the scene, but there's all this stuff, and they eventually, and he's getting weaker and weaker, and they break into this other house because the car's done, and basically she's looking for oxygen tanks downstairs, because like they're worried about breathing in this stuff, or it's getting hard to breathe, and there's like there's an emotional moment between them where she's like, you have to hold on, because he thinks he's dying. He's like, what, I think it's I can't hold on much longer, and she's like, no, you have to for me. So it's trying its best to make us care about them as a pair, and I think maybe that's like I say, the characters and the themes that the characters are trying to present are maybe some of the weakest elements of the movie, but which is why I don't think I can say it's great by any means. I can say it's kind of worth watching, but not amazing. So
it's just that stuff. It's like it's not even like it's necessarily bad. It just feels kind of lacking. Like because again, like we said before, like the characters aren't annoying. It's not like I hated them or didn't want to see them. It's just that it feels less like, not so much bad, just more as like it's missing something.
Yep. So she goes down to get these she finds these oxygen tanks and thinks, okay, we can use these to breathe. while this is happening,
and then when she sees them, she goes, "Oh, tanks." Says, "Take you."
that might be the single worst joke you have ever made on this show. And you're so proud of it. Look at you. Look at his little face is all lit up with joy.
Oh, tanks.
If he says that enough, it may become a t-shirt. Oh, thanks.
Go on.
Yes. So Randall basically dies upstairs, or gets taken properly, because he coughs up some of this, you know, the entity, the creature, part of this, the squiddy looking bit, and he coughs that up, he throws it up, and then his eyes go white, and he's become one of the more zombified people. He's been overtaken. And while this is happening, we get probably the coolest like sort of horror visual in the movie down in the basement, which is Emily hears a noise, and whoever was living in this house is being fed on by, like, I'm not so sure if it's like a person who's like, this is what an overtaken person becomes, or if this is like one of the creatures from the ocean actually like is morphed into a more like humanoid kind of creature that's eating someone. And I say humanoid, only the top half of a human. The bottom half is just like a massive, you know, being.
Yeah.
So it's just proper, like, you know, Lovecraftian aquatic looking horror though. This thing.
Yeah, it looks real cool. Yeah, like I guess you'd say like the special effects in this movie are pretty good. Like, yeah, it's not like a very I guess like effects heavy movie, but yeah, whenever you do get glimpses of this stuff, it always looked really great. Yeah,
it holds back so that what it does show is good, and I do kind of like that it doesn't like immediately chase it. It sort of grills out a little bit, but it's too busy eating the person that it's eating, doesn't care, you know. And it kind of adds again to this sense that it's not this, you know, malicious life form. It's just doing what it does. It's not, you know, this is normal for it. It's not hunting for the fun of sport or anything like that. But she goes back up and of course finds Randall. And has to run and escape. She's in the car that she's got started, and she's riding off into the night. And basically, and I thought again, this was a good moment of direction here, is that it does like a POV shot looking at the front of the car, and like you can't see the road. It's so misty that it's just like going through smoke. Every so often you get a small glimpse of the road, but for the most part you can't see anything. So you're expecting them to crash, and it's actually quite tense just watching her drive for a minute.
It was actually giving me anxiety. Like, I just want to be like, oh God, like, just please drive slow. Like, I know you want to get out of here, but please just drive slow. Try to be as straight as possible. Follow the road.
And she does eventually hit something. And it's nowhere, actually, something we didn't mention earlier, because it happens again here, is that there's one point early on in the movie, I think it's the night, you know, not the morning, but the night before they go to sleep, after they've had the dinner. There's a moment with Emily where she kind of zones out, and she has like a distorted effect on her, like a video effect, where like her like, you know, the sort of the red hue doubles on her nose and face, like an old VHS tape. And it happens again here when she's in the car and she sort of like gets pulled out, and like sort of becomes, you know, one with the ground, I guess. But like it does the same thing where it goes kind of like fuzzy and staticky. It's almost like like there's kind of an electromagnetic kind of distortion happening as well, or at the very least that's how it wants to present kind of the disorientation that this thing gives people, that gives life forms. It was an interesting touch, I guess. I almost wish it could have been explored more. Was that side of it, because it only showed up a couple of times here. But the end of the movie is the last shot is morning, and we see her lying on like the shore next to this body of water that she crashed next to. And her eyes are all white, but she's actually just saying to herself over and over, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid," which is what she said to Randall earlier when she was trying to convince him to fight and stay alive. And the end of the movie is just that the shore comes up over the top of her, and when it washes away, she's gone. And this is clearly, you know, here to like visually represent the idea that kind of evolution's like overtaken her, and that's her gone now, because now the new life forms have taken over and she's gone. So I mean, from a visual like point at the end, it works quite well. But because I don't think the themes are set up well enough or as interestingly enough throughout the film, it doesn't quite have the gut punch of that was the point of the movie the whole time, or That was the big sting that made sense and was a great ending. The actual moment itself is well done, and I understand what it's doing, but I don't think the characters and the themes were set up well enough in the script for it to pay off. So
sure. Yeah, that's fair. Like, yeah, it worked for me, but I understand what you mean. Like, where, yeah, it's not much of a like an oomph. Like, oh man, I can't believe it. It's just like, it's like, oh, okay, that's the end. That's fine. But yeah, if there's a little bit more there, could sung a bit better. But no, I do like that. You know, like yeah, I mean, you know, like the tides of the ocean. You know, you can't fight it. You just gotta accept it and. Hey, here we are.
Here we are, indeed.
One thing that we didn't skip over that I liked as well is when she gets on the radio, you know, trying to kind of phone in for backup, and yeah, you kind of get this little glimpse that yeah, it's not just this area. It seems to be happening all over the country, the world, perhaps. Yeah, because you know, I think he mentions like, oh, like yeah, something about like, you know, if you're in the, you know, if you're near the ocean, like, you know, get away or whatever, and yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's a worldwide
seems
thing.
like
it's not just it's not just this one area. Which, and I mean, I kind of like, as much as I'm saying the themes aren't done well enough, there are little details where I can really see them trying. For example, the whole idea of this visit, this trip to the beach house. The whole thing is about them trying to cling on to this relationship that's clearly falling apart because of their life choices, right? So it's about them trying to not evolve. They're refusing to accept what they're turning into and what they're becoming as people. So that's why the movie's called The Beach House. It's why it's kind of like framed around it, is because the whole thing is that they're refusing to actually go with the flow, essentially, and go and turn into what they're going to become. And like a lot of, you know, fiction does, it takes that and turns it into this very literal thing where they're actually going to become something else. Which obviously is scary, because change is scary. And so, you know, as with anything, yes, like I get what the movie's doing, and I think it is there, and it's not obscene or like, you know, eye rolling. It's just not. It doesn't quite click in a really exciting way that I think it's supposed to.
No, I agree. I think that's easily the biggest flaw of the movie. But I mean, again, it also does like a lot well. So it's it is like a little bit of a balancing act where it's I think the horror stuff is you know, which essentially is mostly just like what the second half, last third of the movie or so. Because it's not a long movie. Like, it's kind of funny saying it's like a slow burn, because it is like less than 90 minutes. But yeah, I think once the horror stuff does pick up, that stuff is done really well. And so it's, again, hard to, you know, be too hard on it. But yeah, I think, you know, like we keep saying, it's just missing a little bit of that extra, you know, spice or oomph or whatever to kind of, you know, make the characters a little more interesting, a little more engaging. You know, like, it seems like there's, like you said, there's stuff there that, you know, on paper maybe it's all nice and neat, but I don't know, maybe there just isn't enough stuff in the beginning to really sell it or make you care as much. But
it needed to, like, I really need to be invested in these characters, and the whole idea that they're clinging on to this relationship that clearly can't last because they're turning into something else. Like, that really had to be hammered home, and it had to be a real big focal point of the movie. And it's kind of like there, and it's brought up a few times, and it's, but it just isn't emphasized enough.
I mean, let's be honest. We needed to see him have sex. Like, if we saw a sex scene, then we would have known that they cared about each other, and that they were close. And I mean, I feel like that's what you're getting at.
I'm trying to give a proper critical analysis of this film, and Tim is here to make sex jokes. That sums up this show in a nutshell.
Hey, why fight it? Why try to change at this point?
So, no. I guess the point I'm ultimately trying to make is that it stops it from being a great gem that's like this, you know, new, really thoughtful horror movie, and instead ultimately lands it in kind of it's a decent B movie to stream, because it doesn't quite nail the actual drama that it's going for, but you know, but it has some good effective moments. I like how the movie feels at places, and the effects when it does show something horror-esque. So you know, So not bad, all in. Not bad.
Yeah.
So I guess we're ready to rate the film. Tim, what are you going to give it?
I am going to give it a pretty good score. So I think I'm actually going to go as high as a 7.5, which I think, to me, that's like, good to pretty good territory. Again, it's just missing that little bit of extra, punch to it that, you could have brought it over to like, an 8, which, that would probably be looking at like something great. But again, there is still a lot of really good stuff there. I do like the direction. I think looks good, a very pretty movie. Slow to start off with, characters, not kind of missing some stuff, but then I mean, once the horror starts, it's like I really really dug that stuff. So 7.5 for me.
I definitely can't go that high. I'm kind of debating where I should go. I think I'm going to go a point lower and say 6.5. I think there's stuff I like about it. There's definitely some can-do attitude with the filmmaking. I think I'm curious to see what this director goes on to do next, and sure. I do think with a bit of a better script, this could have been there, which is kind of almost like a more frustrating, because it's like, oh, this could have been great. This could have been something really special. But as it is, I do think it's worth watching, and I think it's the perfect sort of thing to put on a stream. At
the beach.
Sure. If you're going to watch movies at the beach, you can watch The Beach House. Make you scared to go in the water. But there you go. So I'll say 6.5. That's what I'll rate it. So there you go. That is The Beach House. So if you made it this far in the review, to show us that you made it this far in the comments on YouTube, you can type the word
guy thing.
Sure, guy thing. Yes, guy thing could be the word, or the pair of words, I suppose, to be more accurate. I also get Tim to do his pose right now for the thumbnail. So Tim, if you could lean back so your head's not cut off at the top of the frame. I'll count down 3, 2, 1 and say pose. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. He's going to play it dead straight, apparently. All right. So there you go. I mentioned Patreon earlier. If you want to support us that way, you could do that. I also mentioned liking on YouTube. That's super important. This is subscribing, rating the podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Be a podcast. Your podcast. All of a sudden, I'm from Brooklyn. Your podcast. But where you get your podcast from, give us 5 stars and a review. All that does help a lot. Get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight for updates, jokes, and whatever else we put on there. And yeah, that'll basically do it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.